Thanks everyone for joining us today for this information session on Ruler. So the focus today is to tell you what Ruler is, how it works, and how it can enhance student and educator well-being at your school. So we are so glad you are here. Today's session will be 30 minutes. We are recording and we'll send you the recording by the end of this week. Please note that you are muted and your video is off. We cannot see you and we cannot hear you, so you are in the clear. We will have time for Q&A at the end of today's session, so please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions that you have through the presentation. We'll do our best to get to them towards the end of the presentation. So the Q&A feature are the two little chat bubbles with Q&A below it. You can access it in your Zoom bar. So today is meant to serve as a brief overview of Ruler. There's a lot of information that we're going to share with you. Please know that we're here to support you and your team. If you have any questions, we are available to chat them through with you even after today. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. So who is we? I'm Erin Bruff. I lead up the team that works on all forms of Ruler communication. This includes websites, social media, newsletters, and any other form of communication at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. Today, I'm supporting this webinar as the moderator, so please feel free to chat me if you need anything. And I'm joined by my two colleagues, Amanda Roberts and Tangela Irby. So Amanda, I'll hand it over to you.
Taryn. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Roberts. I'm our client relations manager. So I work with our prospective, our current clients, our schools and districts, and I support our center's trainings and events. And I will pass it over to my colleague, Tangela.
Thanks, Amanda. Hello, everyone. My name is Tangela Irby, and I am a Ruler trainer, facilitator, and coach. I also work on all things Ruler content. So now that you know who all of us are, we're going to hop right into our presentation. So I want you to think of not just your students, but your own children. Think about your students, think about your faculty, think about the staff back at your buildings. What do you want for them? When you think about the future and your hopes and dreams, can you add in the chat? Let me know what it is that you hope for them. What are your wishes? What are your dreams? I'll give you a minute to add something in the chart. You want them to live in harmony. You want them to have emotional literacy. Excellent. You want them to feel seen. These are all positive things that we hope and we want for our students, our staffs. And you know what? I would venture to say that many of these things are things that you want for yourself. You want them to be fulfilled. You want them to be better able to handle things in life, right? Manage and cope with today's stress and anxiety. What we're finding is that these are our hopes and dreams, but we drill down, and we ask our students and our educators about their concerns and how they are feeling. Many of them say that they're worried about social media addiction. They're worried about loneliness, isolation. Educators are concerned about poor regulation skills that they're seeing in schools, burnout, and also behavior management issues. And when we talk to school leaders, they're concerned about the mental health and well-being of both their students and the educators that are in their building. So when you think about your schools, are these things that align with what you're seeing and how you see other staff members saying that they're feeling and some of the concerns that they have? You're not alone. These are things that we see as we work with schools and we engage with schools. These are some of the same issues and things that we are seeing. So you might ask, how does Ruler help? Well, Ruler is a systemic approach to social and emotional learning. Implementing Ruler in your school supports the development of a climate where many of the hopes and dreams that you mentioned at the very top of this call are actually a reality for our students, our staff, and for our leaders. And research supports this. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what we find through our research. So when we look at our students, we're finding that many of them are less anxious. They are more developed in terms of their social and emotional skills, and they have fewer attention problems. We then talk about how does Ruler help educators? So when we look at our educators, educators are more engaged, they feel more supported, and they are more effective. And again, we speak to the burnout and finally having greater job satisfaction. So all the things that our teachers are worried about, many of those things Ruler addresses. And then when we look at schools as a whole, so schools say they experience more positive climates, there's less bullying, there's better academic performance, and they're also they display greater leadership skills. And this all comes from creating that climate that our schools experience with Ruler. I want to take a minute now and I want you to hear directly from one of our schools.
I have always felt that you cannot get to the academic component of children unless you worry about the emotional well-being of children. And this is a way of being that helps everyone stop and look at how do we change what we do in ourselves so that we can improve the outcomes for young people. And I really firmly believe that this mindset does it for kids and the adults. This is an embodiment of a whole philosophy of being. And I think it's one in this world today that we need.
So as I shared before, Ruler is a way of being. It is a pre-K to 12 professional development. It's for educators and classroom instruction for students. It aims to enhance the resilience and well-being so that all members of the school community can achieve their goals. We also include parents. So what does Ruler look like? What are the components of the Ruler approach? So we're going to get into talking about the 3 principles of Ruler. So the first principle is all emotions matter. As educators, we often hear when you walk through the door, leave your emotions at the door. Well, in reality, is that even possible? How we're feeling comes through those doors with us. And being mindful of how we're feeling and how we respond to those emotions can help us and informs how we deal with our students, our staff, and even how we deal with ourselves for the rest of the day. So we begin with teaching everyone that all emotions matter. There are no good or bad emotions. Emotions are social. How you're feeling impacts how other people interact with you. Ever have a day when you're not at your best and you may be a little snappy and you may be yelling at people? Well, the people around you know that that might be a day to avoid you, right? And there are other days that your emotions tell people to approach you, that today would be a good day to maybe ask for a loan or ask for a favor, right? And then our third principle is that emotion skills can be developed. So we don't all wake up being emotionally intelligent. It's something that we learn. So what are those skills that can help us get there? And speaking of skills, we're going to move on to the 5 Ruler skills. So when we talk about Ruler, you know it is an approach. It's the way we approach this work, but it's also an acronym for the 5 skills of emotional intelligence. And so there you see the word Ruler. R is for recognizing our emotions. How do, for example, if you're anxious, what are the signals that your body gives you so that you know that you're feeling anxious, right? It's understanding. It's understanding that I'm feeling this way because I have a test to take in the morning or in an hour and I haven't studied. And so labeling is when you finally come up with that word. It's like I jumped the gun a little bit and gave you the word anxious, but that's when we finally label. So we look at how our bodies are feeling. We look at why we're having this emotional reaction, and then we come up with the emotion word. We also look at how we're expressing those emotions. What do you do when you're feeling anxious? And then finally regulating it. There are times when anxious may be the feeling that you need. You need to sit in that, because when I'm anxious about something, I respond in a specific way. And maybe that's what you need right now, depending on what your task is. But if you find that you're anxious and you don't want to feel anxious, how do you shift? What do you need to do to change that emotion? And these are all a part of the skills that we teach when we're teaching emotional intelligence with the ruler approach. And then finally, all of this is done through our 4 tools. The first tool is the charter, and we use the charter to help us as a community determine 2 things. 1, how is it that we want to feel when we're together? And 2, what will we do to help us feel that way? What will I do to help us feel this way? It's not about if the principal buys coffee for every staff meeting, we'll all feel supported. It's not about what somebody else can do. It's collectively, what are we going to do? The second, which is our most popular, most familiar tool, is the mood meter. And we use the mood meter to really pinpoint our emotions. We look at the level of pleasantness and we look at the level of energy within our bodies to help us determine where are we on that mood meter. And then we move on to the meta moment. And the meta moment helps us respond to situations the way that we want to respond. We think about our best selves in situations. There are things that happen, and sometimes there are things that happen to us over and over again, right? And you always say, I wish I had responded differently. Or if I had the opportunity to do that again, how will I respond? Well, learning to take a meta moment, a proactive meta moment, helps you see yourself responding the way you want to respond and then doing it when those situations arise, when you are in situations where you have intense emotions. And then finally, if you have a charter in place, if you've learned how to use the mood meter, if you learn how to use the meta moment, we're not saying that you will never have conflict. What we're saying is that you may be able to minimize the amount of times that you have conflict, but conflict will happen. And when conflict arises, you can use the blueprint to help you in terms of taking perspective. If there's an issue going on between 2 people, often one can't take on the other person's perspective or vice versa. But sometimes when you sit in that other person's shoes, you're better able to understand what happened, and you can talk about what you can do the next time so that you won't be in the situation again. So again, those are the 4 tools that are part of the ruler approach. So we went through the principles, we went through the skills, and we talked a little bit about the tools. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit now about how ruler actually works as an approach. So ruler implementation is designed to take several years. I'll share with you what our recommended timeline is, with the understanding that some schools are able to implement ruler faster, others might take more time. The important thing is that ruler can be used to fit the individual needs of your schools. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. So we begin by asking each school to send a small team of between 3 and 5 staff typically to a ruler training. We recommend that this team include 1 administrator plus at least 2 teachers or mental health professionals. After that training, the teams that attended would return to their schools and spend about a year teaching the faculty and staff all about ruler and helping them plan for classroom implementation. And then in phase 2, schools bring ruler to the students with curricula, to families with resources and activities. Ruler implementation is meant to become stronger and more robust as time moves on. So once you've decided to move forward with ruler, here's a little bit more on what phase 1 would look like. So first, you'd select that ruler implementation team. Again, that's the team that would attend the training and help to train the rest of your staff on the approach. It's helpful to consider selecting people from your school who together would create the highest impact version of your initial ruler implementation team. Most schools do find it helpful to include the school principal or another school leader, a pupil services personnel like a school counselor, a psychologist, or a social worker, and some teacher leaders across different grade levels. After that ruler implementation team is identified, it's time for them to attend a ruler training or ruler institute. So the attendees of this training will learn about building a growth mindset around emotions, creating a common language around emotions, developing emotion skills, and sustaining positive social and emotional climates. We do offer multiple trainings over the course of a year. We have both in-person and online formats. The in-person training takes place over 2 full days. The online training takes place over the course of 6 weeks. So with the online training, each attendee can expect to spend about 2 to 2.5 hours per week with the training. One of those weekly hours would be a live session via Zoom with the facilitator of your cohort. Those sessions are recorded in case you can't make it live. And the other hour to hour and a half a week would be at your own pace, going through the training activities, readings, reflections, watching videos, etc. We'll share a link where you can see our upcoming training schedule as a follow-up to this session. So when that team that attends the training, either the in-person or the online training, when they return to the faculty and staff at their schools, they have a big job. So when they leave the training, usually teams are feeling really inspired, really motivated to bring ruler to their schools. Our job is to help you keep that enthusiasm going. So in that first year, all of the faculty and staff at the school will have access to our ruler online platform. We'll take a brief tour of this platform in just a little bit so you can see exactly how that looks and how that functions. The platform, though, has everything that your school team needs to help train the faculty, staff, and to implement ruler in the classrooms, grades pre-K through 12. The team that attended the training will also receive virtual coaching sessions, support webinars, and newsletters to help guide their progress. Once the adults in the school have adopted the approach, it's time to then plan for classroom implementation. We'll show you a little bit more on what that classroom instruction looks like when we tour Ruler online, and we'll also share some sample lessons with you after this session. Before we move on to what phase 2 looks like, we want to ensure that we're offering the training format that you need. So the pandemic and associated changes over the last few years, it's really shifting what schools are looking for. So we want to make sure that we have what you are looking for. So let's talk a little bit more about phase 2. So phase 2 focuses on strengthening ruler implementation at your school. It involves the continued onboarding of new staff, the continued staff personal and professional development, classroom implementation, and family engagement and education. Let's talk a little bit now about the training and implementation package that we offer. So we have a 2-year training and implementation package. It includes the training, staff development, classroom instruction, and family education and engagement. So the costs would look a little bit different depending on whether you do the online or in-person training, so the format, and also the size of your ruler implementation team. What's included in both is the training itself, so the Ruler Institute, also virtual group coaching sessions, newsletters, and support webinars, access to our Ruler Online platform for all of the staff in your building, and a discount for our annual National Implementation Conference. And our ruler support doesn't end after your school's 2-year training implementation package. You can continue your access to all of the supports that were included in that package with our annual subscription. The only thing that you'll see that it doesn't include is that initial training. Your school would only need to participate in that once, and that is $1,000 per school annually. So we'll pass it back over to Tangela now. Tangela is going to give us a brief tour of our Ruler Online platform.
Thanks so much, Amanda. All right, so Amanda mentioned our curriculum, but we also have other resources that are online. So I'm just going to take you through the platform. So after your team has been trained, they will have access to Ruler Online. And if you look across the top, we start with our courses, then there are resources, curricula, tools, and then coaching. So there are 2 actual courses that your people can take after you've been trained. So when you go back to your schools as the implementation teams, people say, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? All of the resources that you went through, whether you were in person or online, they will also be online for your staff. So when you look at resources, again, you're going to be implementing Ruler not only with your staff, you're also going to do implementation with your students and with your families. So here you have everything that you will need to help you do that. I talked about the principles, I talked about the tools. There are resources for all of these things right here. Well, now we need to talk to our families. What does that look like? There are actually PowerPoint presentations that are there that you can customize. You have access to the slides. You make them fit for your schools. And we also offer Ruler for out of school time. So say you have an after school program and you want the thing that you may want to do is have continuity between what happens for students during the day and then what happens for students in the afternoon when they are quote unquote not in the normal school setting. There's your classroom content. You'll see that curriculum is found in 2 different places on the platform. So we can make sure that when teachers need those materials, they're able to access it. Erin's showing you at the very top where curricula is as well. Thank you. And just to show how we're responsive. So for example, during COVID, when a lot of schools had to pivot to hybrid, we were remote. And so schools said, we need some resources. And so we have those resources here and they're still on the platform because people are still accessing them. And then we also, there are things for mindfulness. And then we also have some trauma-informed resources as well. So again, trying to be responsive to things that people have asked us for as they relate to implementing Ruler in your school buildings. So we're going to go back to the top and we're going to click on curricula. And here we have elementary, early childhood, elementary, middle, and high school. We're going to click into elementary school and Erin, can you go to grade 5? And we're going to look at unit. We're going to take well, before I get to the units. So you have your teaching guides, there's core routines, there are introductory lessons. We even have a 1-pager with all of our feeling words. Those are the words that students are going to learn throughout the course of the school year. Unit 1, I talked about the principles. We talked about emotions matter. If you click into unit 1, students will also be learning how emotions matter. And they're going to learn about how emotions impact. For example, we talked about how emotions impact your body when you're feeling a certain way, helping students be able to understand and recognize that, right? And then the other thing that I'll mention is we talk a little bit about how emotions impact our relationships. So you see here, we mentioned standards. We also go into, it's not a prescribed lesson. It doesn't say step 1, step 2. It doesn't say, here's the initiation, here's your closure, but it's basically a summary of the lesson. And there are 4 lessons there, okay? There are also, for the elementary schools, there's also a connection for families. And there is a performance task. So when you think about evaluation, we're not going to evaluate someone's social emotional skills, right? That's not the message that we want to send. We say emotion skills are developing. So we know that they're always going to be developing.
Erin, we send all samples for all grade levels, right?
Yep, absolutely. So as a follow-up to today's session, we will send you pre-K, elementary, middle school, and high school sample lessons so that you will be able to see them. Middle school is structured a little differently than elementary and pre-K. Middle school is structured so that you can embed it into a multiple subject matters across school. So you can use it in math, you can use it in English language arts. You can even use it in phys ed. And that is how this curricula is structured. So we'll be sure to give you an example of that.
So you'll notice the way the high school is set up, and you still have those same resources, right? You have your teaching guides, you have all of those resources, but instead of saying freshman year, sophomore year, we say year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, because depending on when your high school comes on board with Ruler, year 1 might be sophomore year, right? Sophomore, junior, seniors for year 1, everybody will be doing year 1. So that is how we explain it. Is year 1. But can you go into lesson 2, which is emotion matter? So I want people to see that there's a through line here, right? The adults are learning about emotions matter. Students are learning about emotions matter. And with the high school, it's a little different. We actually have those lessons scripted out for you. So if you wanted to, for example, put this up on a whiteboard, you could do that. Or if you wanted, the teachers wanted the lessons written out in a teacher guide, we have that as well. So there are options for high school. But thank you, Erin, for showing us a little bit more about the different ways that high school teachers can access the curricula. And then finally, across the top, there's the next one is tools. We do have, again, I talked about the tools. And so here, if you wanted more information about each individual tool, there's another way to access it. And for some of our tools, there's an electronic component. So there's a mood meter, for example, that's electronic. And again, there's so much more information. This is just really an overview, but again, it lets you understand or see some of the options that are available to you. And the very last thing that I will touch upon is the coaching. Once your team has been trained and you're ready to start implementation with your staff, students, and your families, we don't leave you. So if you look here and you'll have access to this link once you are part of the Ruler family, and you'll be able to go in and actually schedule time with our trainers. I mentioned that I am a trainer, so you'll see my name mentioned here, but all of our trainers are awesome. And you can get a sense of how often we offer those training sessions. All right, so that is the Ruler Online platform.
Looks similar to how we have it structured for elementary, but again, not the same. And you can see the varying disciplines here that you can embed the lessons and concepts into.
And Erin, I just want to add, we give recommended time frames and suggestions, but we know that every school building is different. We have some schools that have a designated 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes that they're going to do their ruler lessons. We have other schools that embed the skills and the tools into their actual, for example, ELA block. So it looks different for everyone, but the way the curriculum is set up, it gives you that flexibility to make those changes.
All really great questions. Thank you. And thanks, Tangela.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, and we're at time now, so thank you for your questions. If we didn't get to them, what we're going to do is we're going to address them in our follow-up email. So thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, we'll include the recording of today's session. Sometimes we have schools who attend and they want to share it out with the rest of their school community. We want you to do that. Please share the recording. We will include the training info, as Amanda had mentioned in the chat. We offer several trainings a year, both online and in person. We will give you the links for more information on both of those. We're also going to give you an example implementation guide. So Amanda had mentioned that after training, staff return to the rest of the faculty and staff and have to get them on board. Well, what does that look like? We're going to show you what that looks like in our sample implementation guide. And then, as I had mentioned, we will share sample lessons with you for each grade level band so you can take a look at them. If you could just take a second and scan that QR code, we do have a quick 5-question survey for you. If you could take that anytime, we'll include it in the follow-up email as well. And you can contact us anytime at rulertraining@yale.edu. Amanda, if you could pop that into the chat for me, that would be great. We'll also include it on the follow-up email. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. There's going to be a lot of information in the follow-up email, but we look forward to connecting with you and hopefully working with you in the future. Thank you so much, and we'll talk with you soon.